I am a software engineer at one of the leading tech firms in Europe, but my journey started right here in Ogun State, Nigeria. As a teenager, I always wanted to be a medical doctor, but I found joy in coding during a 7-day digital bootcamp in 2016. Today, I work as a software engineer at one of the world's leading blockchain startups, and I've also worked with other engineering teams across 3 continents. My name is Shedrack. I earn well and thrive in a career that I love.
It's safe to say I learned the skill and became a global talent. You can too.
I am a software engineer at one of the leading tech firms in Europe, but my journey started right here in Ogun State, Nigeria. As a teenager, I always wanted to be a medical doctor, but I found joy in coding during a 7-day digital bootcamp in 2016. Today, I work as a software engineer at one of the world's leading blockchain startups, and I've also worked with other engineering teams across 3 continents. My name is Shedrack. I earn well and thrive in a career that I love.
It's safe to say I learned the skill and became a global talent. You can too.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Can anybody hear me? May I see confirmations on the chat if anyone can hear me at all? Hello, 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 hello. Can we hear me? I still can see our messages rolling in yet. I say good evening from Aramide. Good evening, Olamide. All right. Okay, Bukon, thank you for the confirmation. Olajide, yes, you can hear me. Excellent. Thanks a lot, everybody, for joining this program, Digital Skills Africa. It's good to have every one of you on board. I'm so sorry. I'm supposed to at least show us my face today, but I'm leaving that for the later, so not to worry at all. So don't worry, you got to see me, and then you can leave with the voice for now. We catch up with the face later. Admin, please, if possible, you can make the screen, the slides go on a full screen so that the background, I think there's a flyer on the background, sort of. All right, excellent. Thanks for that. Okay, so welcome everybody. Thanks a lot for joining this program of us, Digital Skills Africa. It will be interesting to know where you guys are joining from. Can you just drop that on the chat? If you're joining from Mars, you're joining from Jupiter, you're joining from Nigeria. I think Nigeria should be a continent now, not necessarily a country. Okay, so okay, volume please. Is it just Semisola that couldn't hear quite well? Is the volume fine for everybody? Just confirm. Graphic design, Ojo, this is the wrong place. You need to check your inbox so you can get the actual link for your class. Okay, I see some people from Ibadan. Somebody from Mowe, interesting. Welcome, Jolayemi. Jolayemi is from Nigeria. You belong to nobody, Jolayemi. Thanks a lot for that. It's good to have you. Esther from Ibadan. Excellent. Ojo Noka from the US. Interesting. Aregbe is from art. I like that. I think everybody is from art, maybe, but I saw somebody posted earlier that they are from, is it Mass? And they have in Nigeria in mass, which is quite interesting. Every one of us will need to visit that particular place someday. Excellence, you said your mic. What do you mean by my mic? My volume, my volume, my volume. Let me see if I can do something about it. How is it now? Is it better now? Anyways, is it better? Is it more audible? Let's have a confirmation on the chart. I see somebody from London. Interesting. How is the weather there? Thanks a lot for joining us. The volume is extremely low. Okay, I think I have confirmation that it's okay now. Thank you so much for that. Moronke is very audible. Excellent. Thank you for that confirmation as well. It's interesting to have every one of us on the call tonight. I'm not sure I've seen anybody from the northern part of the country. Is there anybody from the north? I see Asogwa from Enugu. Thank you so much. It's good to have you join us. Delta State, Hope. How is Delta? Hope, are you from Agbo or from where else do I know in Delta, Asaba or Wari or where? Mohammed is from Abuja. Okay, interesting. That's good to have us. I'm just hoping that we have quite a good representation across board. Sadiq is from Yobe. Okay, Ladi from Kaduna. So when I ask people to identify themselves if they're from the north, so I saw responses coming. I saw somebody from Nasarawa Ashiki. Interesting. Thank you so much for joining, Felix from Kaduna. Thank you so much. People from Oyo State. Okay, I saw somebody from Oyo State now. Thank you so much. It's good to have every one of you on board. We are glad to have you join this program, and we are making it. We are giving us our words that we would have a very good experience in this program. If this is the data analysis track, just for your information, in case you are not interesting, Jane Paul from Cameroon. Thank you so much for joining this from Cameroon. I don't know what time it will be there, but I think maybe it's just probably an hour or two different. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe it might be a bit later there than it is in Nigeria this time. But thank you for your sacrifice. Thanks a lot for putting in to join this program. It will be interesting to see you complete this in flying colors. Somebody from UAE, Olabisi, thank you so much for joining. So if you are not on the data analysis track, please, you need to exit this particular channel and go to whatever class that you have actually put in for. I have an understanding that we have a number of tracks, quite a number of them. There is the development, there is the cybersecurity. A number of tracks are available, so you need to be sure of where you're supposed to be at this time. If you're not on the data analysis track, this will be the wrong place for you to be in, so you do not waste your time, please. So just confirm you're supposed to be here only if you're putting for the data analysis track, and then you're accepted into that. So you register for virtual assistance. Please, you need to leave this class, you need to go find the link for your virtual assistance course track, so that you can join that particular class. Data science analysis, please, am I on the right track? I know of data analysis. I'm not so sure if I think we have a different track for machine learning, data science and machine learning. So you should not be here. So this is strictly data analysis. It is not data science or machine learning. Excellent, Olaruwaju. I like that. Thank you so much from Abuja. It is good to have you join us. Thank you so much for that. Somebody is still saying, Adeola is saying that the volume is still low. Can anybody confirm if the volume is still low? Susan, this is not product design. You are not supposed to be here. You need to move to your class, except maybe you just want to pass time here, which I would not advise. So you need to go to your class. Is your man? No, this is not digital marketing. So you need to go to, or go probably the link must have been shared via email or maybe in your class channel. So you need to go find that, and so you can join the actual class you're supposed to be part of. Okay, so thanks a lot, everybody, for your responses and for the warm welcome. Thank you so much. I so much appreciate the ambience and how we've reacted to the welcome messages. Thank you so much for that. All right, so we'll be going into this for now. So for data analysis, just so that we have a bit of a heads up for data analysis, we are going to, or let me say that for the program entirely, we have an understanding that this will run for 3 months. So this is going to run for 3 months. So for whatever you have along the way, please drop them on the chat. I will try to pick them. And if I'm not able to, I have some of my bosses at the back end. We are going to pick some salient things for me as well. Volume is okay, essential. Thank you very much. I'm just wondering, essential info, is that a channel name or is that your real name? It will be interesting to know that that's your real name. All right. So this program is going to run for 3 months, 3 solid months. So you are on a journey. So this is not a training, in my opinion. You are on a journey, and the journey is going to last 3 months, after which you would have been prepped for so much interesting things in the field of data analysis. Okay, so you do not have the link, you did not receive the mail, you might want to check your spam, you might want to check some other folders, maybe junk. You need to get the actual link for your class. If you're not in the data analysis, you are not supposed to be here, frankly speaking, so you do not waste your time. All right, so but for these 3 months, we are going to have actual learning take place in 2 months. So the first 2 months of the 3 months would be for strict learning. So you need to brace up, you need to fold up your sleeves for what is going to happen in the next 2 months. Before we go again into this, I just want to survey the room again so I have an understanding what the audience seem like. If you've never done anything, or let me say it this way, if you've never touched Excel before, for example, you've never done anything in Excel before, please drop a yes on the chat for me. You have never done anything in Excel before, drop a yes on the chat for me. So I just want to say that data analysis community is already full. Okay. If you are not there yet, you may need to reach out to the admin so that you can get probably there's an alternative room that you're supposed to join so you can get into that. I see a lot of yeses coming in. If you have not done anything in Excel before, you are at zero ground level knowledge in Excel, drop a yes for me on the chat. I know that depending on your location, for some people that are in mass, my messages may get to you later, so somebody will reply with a yes maybe in 30 minutes after now. All right, that's just on a light note. Okay, so product management, Babajide, you are not supposed to be here, so you need to exit this now and go find your class. Data analysis WhatsApp group is full. Please reply to one of the messages that you must have received from now and go get a link to join another room if the current one is filled up. Joseph, this is your first class. Of course, it is the first class for everybody. Nobody had a class before now, except for the pre-training webinars that I've probably held before now. How do you reach out to the admin? You have probably received a number of emails. You got a confirmation to join this class. That's why you're here. So you need to use one of the emails that you've received. Just reply to that email and you should get a response. Anyone, Mary, you've not gotten a response for a while, please bear with us. So one thing is certain, we have fewer earns to attend to many heads. So if you understand what I mean. So for this class, for example, if you look at this live session that is holding, you probably would have an idea of how many people were admitted. And of course, you can also guess that this is not everybody on the call at the moment. So it means that we might be getting numerous mails. That's the admin. That are supposed to attend to those emails. They might be getting a lot of them, but for one reason or the other, they might not have gotten to your particular email to respond to you. So just bear with us. You'll get responses momentarily. All right. So I have an understanding now that we have quite a number of people on this call who are pretty new to data analysis. Excellent. Don't worry. What I would just implore you to do is to try as much as possible to keep your heart at whatever we're going to be discussing, and ensure you practice along. Do all your assignment, do your project, and you'll thank yourself later on. All right. So you're welcome once again, everybody. That was just a sort of a housewarming. You're welcome once again to the Digital Skills Africa Data Analysis track. And on the data analysis track, there are three major things that we're going to focus on. So we'll focus on Microsoft Excel, SQL, and Power BI. This is not in any way to tell you that these are all the tools that we use for data analysis. My name, don't worry, we'll get to that. We take things in sequence, okay? So we'll get to an introduction. I've had an introduction of you, so I think it's fair enough that I introduce myself to, but we'll get to that in a moment. All right, so the class will be focused on Excel, SQL, and Power BI. And like I mentioned, it's not in any way to tell us that these are all the tools that we use for data analysis. There are numerous tools out there, but potentially these are the standard tools that most organizations would generally use. Okay, so whatever question you have along the way, please drop them for me. Microsoft Excel, can we use Google Spreadsheet? I would advise that you use Microsoft Excel, as that is what I'm gonna be teaching. Okay, so the class, we're gonna be focusing on Microsoft Excel. But interestingly, a lot of the things that we are going to be talking about in Microsoft Excel, they are transferable. So you can implement them in your Google Sheet as well. A lot of them. I don't think there's anything that we'll talk about in this class that you cannot do in Google Sheet as well. So you're covered. So, but Microsoft Excel has a lot of flexibility. But let me not do the comparison. So somebody will not say that I'm doing an advert for Microsoft. So I would leave it at that. Microsoft Excel is what we're going to be teaching in this class. No Python, no, we are not teaching Python in this class. And the reason is that because we have a lot of beginners who are going to be joining this class. If we want to infuse Python into this learning, that would mean that we need to stretch the class. And I'm not sure we have everybody's commitment to stay in the class for 6 months. So we like to do things in the best of ways. We like to do things in the ways that it will be beneficial to every single person that enrolled in this course. And that's why we have restricted it to these three tools for now. So you can keep your eyes up for some other information that may come. I'm not promising. I'm not accountable for this. Nobody can hold me for this. I'm only saying this. So there might be the possibility that sometime in the future, a program might come our way that would avail you the opportunity to learn all of those things that you're mentioning, SPSS, R, Python. But I can say that for in the business environment, mostly you're going to work with Excel, SQL, and Power BI. There are some other tools out there like Google Data Studio. We have the Looker, we have the Tableau, we have the Python, the R, the SPSS that you have mentioned. They have their specific areas where they work, where they are used mostly. But again, for any business setting that you find yourself in Nigeria, you are most likely going to be working with one of these. Thank you, Eniola. I learned that from you. All right. So For this class, we have three facilitators, amazing facilitators. Maybe you have met a few persons before now. I'm aware that we had the general session, was it last week, where we met some of the facilitators. For some reasons, I was not on that call. So it's possibly you probably have heard from my other colleagues, Temidayo, TD, and Femi. They probably have spoken to you about some things that we'll be discussing on this. So in this particular cohort, this particular program of ours, I would be the one to stay with Excel. So I will be teaching us Excel, which will be starting onwards from now, after which my other guys will come on board to also take us some part of this learning as well. All right. So for you to get the best out of this training, all right, for you to get the best out of this training, we have this set of rules for you. Number one of them, at the top of them, is punctuality. Please, you need to come to class early enough. I'm calling this a class. So you have given your commitments to this. You have told us that you are ready for this journey. That was why you registered for this. I'm sure you did not register for just for the sake of registration. I'm sure you didn't do that. So you registered so you could learn, and so you could add on some other skill set in your arsenal. So that's the reason why you registered for this course. So you should join the class early enough. The class is slated for 7 p.m. I want to assume, or imploring, pleading with everybody, try to be on the call before 7 o'clock. By God's grace, we'll start the class immediately. So whatever you have missed before you joined would be at your own peril, just like one of my lecturers would say in school. All right, so have an open mind. So I'm saying you should have an open mind because of the fact that it's possible that some of you on this call, you might have done some trainings before now. Maybe you've attended a data analysis class before now. Yes, this is data analysis class, Precious. Maybe you've attended a data analysis course before now. They've taught you some things in Excel in some ways, and I'm telling you that you should do it in another way. Yes, whatever I tell you, I'm not saying that you should take it hook, line, and sinker, but I can tell you tentatively that if you do what I tell you, you probably will get some better experience using Excel. So I'm saying you should have an open mind. Whatever you've learned before, keep it with you. Whatever you're learning from me, just do an addition to what you've learned before now. Juliet, you register for content and copywriting. You are not supposed to be here. Peace, graphic design, you are not supposed to be here. So you should have your own separate link. You need to go find where the link is. All right. You should have one class. What I mean by this is that you should ensure that you are in an environment, an atmosphere that you would not be distracted. You should be somewhere that you would not be distracted at all. Focus. The class is running for just 2 hours. In a day, you have 24 hours, and out of the 24 hours, we have asked you to come and learn for just 2 hours. So that 2 hours should be strictly for your learning. Eschew any form of distractions during the course of this training. Participate as much as possible. You will notice that as I'm training, I'm monitoring the chart to see what excellence. Yes, all classes would happen on YouTube, so you need to participate as much as possible. So my style of training is that while I'm teaching some things, I'll be asking some questions. So I would like that I get some responses from you. That is the only validation I can get that you guys are following, and I'm not here in a room left alone to think about my life. So you need to assist me so that I'm not thinking that, oh, these guys have left me here. So please be here, and then you are active in class. You should not have your laptop beside you and then you are checking your noodles, whether it's burning or not. I know some people, so maybe that is what somebody is already doing. But please try to participate as much as possible. Let's respect ourselves. For everybody on this call, I do not know most people personally. Addressing us by your first name. So please, let's do first name basis. So when I call you Emmanuel, for example, I call you Odin, for example, it doesn't necessarily mean that I don't have respect. I have respect. And I know that for a lot of people, I'm supposed to be adding Mr., but that would take another 1 second of my time. So I don't want that to happen. Okay. So what I would say is that please bear with me. When I call you by your first name, it doesn't mean that I'm not regarding ourselves. And please, when anybody addresses you by your first name, and just take it as yes, it's just for this class. We can meet outside and then we prostrate to ourselves. But for this class, please let's accept it that way. Ask questions. Whatever is not clear, you should ask your question. That is the reason why you're here. So if I'm saying anything that you're confused about or seem ambiguous to you, or you're not clear what I'm even going to, somebody say Mushin is here. Where did you see Mushin? I need to understand where that is coming from. Okay, so um, ask questions. So whatever is not clear, ensure that you clarify it before you leave the class. But what you can do so that you don't get your questions lost in the chat is that you can document it somewhere. Just put your questions somewhere, maybe on a notepad. And what I typically do in classes like this is 15 minutes to the end of the hour, the end of the class, I leave it, I stop teaching so that I can attend to as many questions as possible. So I hope that we can stick with that pattern. So we run the session from 7 p.m. till 8:45 thereabout, and then we can use the remaining 15 minutes to attend to all your questions. So you can keep your questions, document it in a notepad, and then you'll see how you can drop those when we open the windows for questions. Mute your microphone. Yes, this may not be applicable because here we cannot talk. Yeah, because we're on a YouTube live. But again, essentially, it's just important that we focus on the class so that we are not distracted. So the last thing I have here is type your questions, which is something I already mentioned. All right. So this is your facilitator for today. My name is Mohsin. Not Mushin. I saw a lot of people, a couple of people typed Mushin on the chat. No. So there are two versions of this. So there is Muslim, who is a person, and that is Mushin, which is a location in Lagos. So I'm not the location, I'm the person. Okay. You may want to think about it like, okay, maybe this is the king of Mushin. Anyways. All right. So my name is Mohsin. So that is my name. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer, and I have a number of is there a difference between data analysis and data science? Yes, because there's a difference in the name, so there's a difference in the technicality. So they do slightly different things. Thank you, Lovett. Hi to you. All right, so I'm a Microsoft certified trainer. I have a number of other Microsoft certifications as well. I've been in the business intelligence space for quite a while now. If you count back, maybe from around 2019, thereabout. And then I've trained a lot of people. I'm sure that the number I put here is even maybe an understatement, kind of. So who is the class rep? The person is behind the bars. You want to know if the class rep is Oshodi? No. All right. So and then I've built systems because my career journey, I spent about 4 years in consulting. So I've had to consult for a lot of companies in different industries. So I've built analytic systems for different companies. At the moment, in Nigeria, we have a Power Platform community. So anybody that knows about Power Platform, which is a suite of products for Microsoft, we have a community in Nigeria. So for Nigeria, I'm the Community Technical Officer. And for the Oyo State chapter, I am the lead, or one of the leads. So if you're a community person, you can tag along. You can reach out on LinkedIn, and then we can talk about the communities. At this time that we are having this class, I work with Promasido as a group BI developer. That's my 9 to 5 job for now. Okay. All right. So that is a brief about me. Of course, we can connect beyond this time, maybe on LinkedIn elsewhere. If you type that name, maybe it's just two people that answers that name in Nigeria. Oh, somebody works at Promasido too. Oluwatobiloba. I think we should catch up. I'll be at ICT tomorrow. We can catch up. All right. So this is me. So let's go into what we're talking about. For this class, Excel. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everybody. You love my name, or you want to call me the location. The agenda, we'll be talking about foundations of data. All right. So I want to give this foundation so that we can have a bit of understanding of what we are doing and why we are doing what. Okay. So I don't want a situation whereby we just teach and then you just follow. Oh, interesting. I see a number of people who work at Promasido. Interesting. It's good to have us around. It's good to have us around. Okay. So we'll talk about foundations of data, after which we'll now go into Microsoft Excel, and we'll have a bit of introduction into what Excel is. and why you should actually know Excel. Then we go into functions in Excel, not necessarily basic functions. We'll be talking about a number of yes, this is Oyenuga. This is for data analysis. If you're in a different track, you need to go find that link, please. So we'll talk about basic functions in Excel, and then we'll talk about some intermediate function as well, and how you build report and you do some analysis in Excel. We'll get to that as well. And then you have a project that you're going to work on. The project would have a number of phases, but again, I'll leave my bosses to communicate to you on that. So let's begin with this. One of the most important things, okay? One of the most important things that you should be aware of when it comes to Ebenezer. Can you use Google Sheets to follow till Excel is installed? Yes, you should be able to. You should be able to. Why is the screen blank? The screen is not blank, Rachel. You may need to probably check your internet, go out and come back in. Maybe that's something you need to do. So we need to have an understanding of data, and it's called data literacy. What does that mean? Data literacy in the sense that we need every single person in the world of ours today should know what data is about. Before now, maybe some 10 years or slightly less than that, before now, people used to talk about data and they say that data is the new oil. They say data is the new oil and everybody needs to now begin to explore data. But finally, data sits with every single person. Let me give you an instance, something that would make you have an understanding of how you must have been using data day in, day out. For those of us, maybe growing up, especially for those of us that are still in Nigeria, not some of us that we have gone to Mars, or some people that have gone to Jupiter, or some people that is in Nigeria that is on Earth, maybe not those people, but those of us that we are in Nigeria, the typical Nigeria that we know, you probably would agree with me that at some point in time, when you want to, for example, maybe on a weekend, you're planning to take pap. Okay, you want to take pap on a weekend, and then you want to take it with akara, and you don't want to fry that at home. You want to go get akara yourself. What time do you typically, or would you typically go out to go get the akara? What time? David, are you going to get a material for this class? Yes, the material is your YouTube. You need to stick with that. And then every exercise file that we would use for this class will be shared with you. So from next class, every single class would have an exercise file that will be shared with you. So Samuel said 7 p.m. Rokiba 7 a.m. Dogs 8 a.m. Morning time. Excellent. Excellent. Okay, 8 a.m. OEs. Success 7 a.m. Interesting. 9 a.m. If you look at what everybody has mentioned, Williams 8 to 9 is still in the morning. Between 6 and 9 a.m. That's when most people are suggesting that you typically would go out to go buy your akara. Why is that happening? Because subconsciously in your mind, there will be a time that you had gone out maybe 10 a.m. and you met the woman selling akara, you met that she had sold out. Or you probably went maybe 6 a.m. and you got there, you saw that she was just putting together a firewood. And then something now tells you that, okay, there was a time that I went out at 10 and I didn't get what I wanted to buy because that was far beyond the time that I could have gotten the akara. And then there was a day that I went at 6 a.m. and that seemed to be too early to go get the akara. So subconsciously, you have noted that timing in your brain. And that's what would inform you that when next you're going, you should go between 7 and 8, especially if you want it very hot, right from the groundnut oil, and then you want to just go devour it immediately like that. Okay, so what you are doing in that instance is you are using data that you have gathered. There was a day you went out at 6. There was a day you went out at 6, it was not ready. There was a day you went out at 7, it was very hot, excellent, and that was super good for bread. When you take hot akara with bread, you know how interesting that would be. How do you join software development class at Rupe Kingsley? You need to leave this class. That is how you will join your software development class. Okay, so that very hot akara would be excellent for bread. But there was a day that you didn't need that much hot akara. You need it to be a bit dried. So you went 8 o'clock. Okay, so you go get your akara at 8 o'clock. So that's how you've been using data in your subconscious to manage how you and when you go out to get your akara. So in every single thing that we do, there is an element of data that we normally would have put into that decision making. There was a time that you used to go to ShopRite to go get everything that you need. There was a time that you would go to, you now stopped going to ShopRite because you tried somewhere else, and then all of the prices that you got at that new place, you noticed that, it seemed like they were better prices than what you used to get at ShopRite. How did you store the prices that you were getting at ShopRite? It was because somehow in your subconscious, even when you were not taking note or you were not keeping all of the receipts, those prices, those costs were always in your brain. So immediately you go somewhere else and then you ask them for the price of something and they tell you a price that is lesser than what you used to know. Something strikes it in your brain and then you're picking that, I need to switch where I buy this thing from. So every single person living, or most people living today, would have at some point in time used data to manage some things that you do, some decisions that you make. If you are in Lagos, there are times that, hey, thank you for Lashade Boku bread, good. So there are times that you want to go out, you are on the mainland, you want to go to the island, okay? So you want to go to the island, for example, and then you see that you feel that if you are leaving the mainland at 6-7, you might not get to the island before 10 because of traffic. So, and you only knew that because you've been on that road at that time and you were stuck in traffic. So what normally would happen is that you will now switch the time that you will be going out. Maybe you now say, okay, let me go out at 12 or at 1 p.m. because you know that at that time the road will be free, everybody's already in the office. All of these decisions were backed with data. So you might not be putting the data somewhere physically, but the data are normally put somewhere in your brain subconsciously, and it naturally would come out when you do need them. Okay, somebody's saying 4 a.m. Typical Lagos. Thank you for that. All right, so when we now talk about data literacy in the world of business, there are certain things that we need to know to understand the cycle via which data moves. So when you understand the cycle with which data moves, it would then make sense to you that there are a lot of work that goes into managing data before you get to see what you eventually would see. For almost everybody on this call, you probably at some point in time, you have seen one fine report somewhere on LinkedIn that somebody shared, or one interesting dashboard somebody shared on Twitter, and you're wondering what happened, how does this come to play? Essentially, there are a lot of things behind the doors that you get to now understand in the data literacy class. Sorry, Taiwo, I'm also in Lagos, so I expressed that I have a lot of data around it in my head, so we are in it together. So I'm not in any way putting this to anybody. All right, so the very first thing is this, which is pretty much reasonable and logical. And it is the fact that before you can analyze data, the data must exist. You would agree with me. Before you started making decision of not going out to go buy akara after 10 a.m. in the morning, the data already existed in your brain that you had once gone out at 10 a.m. and you did not get akara because the woman had sold out. So before you can get to analyze data, the data must exist in the first place. So which is what we call data generation. So data generation is typically the process, the ways by which businesses get to put together the data that they need so that they can now analyze the data and make decisions from it. Before I proceed, if you are still with me on the chat and you are in Nigeria, okay, you are not anywhere else. I don't mean to say that those my brothers from Cameroon, those of us from Finland, everybody, of course, let me not say Nigeria again. So somebody will not say that I'm discriminating. So everybody on this call, if you're still with me, please type yes on the chat for me. Somebody will type no because they are not sure what I asked of. So type yes on the chat if you're still with me. Yes, 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 yes. If you're still with me. Okay. All right. Thanks a lot for that. So I know that people are following. So the very first thing in data literacy to understand, okay, the very first thing you need to understand is how the organizations gather the data that you see. But before I give us some illustrations around this, let me give you something to play with quickly. I want to give you something to play with quickly, and then I will come back to now explain what is happening behind the scenes. So 1 second, you'll see something come up on your screen. It's a quick activity that will happen, and then you just tell me what you can see. 1 second. All right, look at this now. This is a typical market. This is a typical market, okay? Maybe this is a market in Lagos, for example. Tell me what data can you see here? Let me give you an instance. For example, I see that people are selling quite different things. So if you want to gather data around what people sell, we would have data around people selling fruits, selling granite, selling a few other things that we can see here. So tell me what you can see. Somebody knows the market, Nathaniel. Nathaniel, I think I need to see you. Okay, so what do you see? What spread of information do you see here? Oh, yeah, you see cars. Okay, good. People are heading in different directions. Thank you for that. Tosin, you see different gender. Good. Ibuko number of persons crossing the road. Interesting. Alamu public transport system. Okay. Rhoda, a big company, fruit seller. Okay. Emmanuel, you see oranges. Bundle of success, you see clothes. Did you see clothes because you're a bundle of success? Okay. Somebody saw kangaroo. I need to go find it. I'm not sure I've seen kangaroo in this before. A busy community, orcas. So building a park is interesting. We can see a lot of things, and this is how we typically gather data. Think about it this way. When we were in the COVID era, may we not experience that again. During COVID, how do you think that when you watch NTA news, for example, later at night, then they tell you that the number of new cases for today is 5 million, for example. How do you think they came about that? It's by way of gathering this data from different places. So what we typically do with data gathering is to look at what you can see and try to now put things into meaningful categories. That's what it means. So for example, now, during COVID, would have people that would gather data from Mushin. So Mushin is one area. They gather data, they collect the number of cases in Mushin, and they add the number of cases in Mushin to Oshodi local government, for example, which means that every single area within Oshodi, they would have collated the different numbers, add it up to what makes up the total in Oshodi. So when they are now reporting, they say that in Oshodi, there were 10 new cases for that particular day. And Oshodi submits their own data to the state, Lagos State, that's all local governments put together. Lagos State submits theirs to the Southwest. That sums up the number of cases for the region. And then the region submits theirs to the country. And that's how data gets to be gathered. So essentially data is gathered by way of studying things, by way of looking at what is happening. So when you look at what is happening, it then depends on how you're looking at it. Are you looking at it physically with your bare eyes, or you are looking at it by way of using some instrument to get to those details? Does this make sense to anybody? Let me know on the chat quickly. Let me know on the chat. Does this make sense to anybody? Kende, I'm sure you are in the wrong class if you're asking which class is this. This is data analysis class. If you're not supposed to be here, please go to your class. Does this make sense to people? Or have I been speaking French or Francais? Okay, yes, it does. Excellent. I'm happy. I would have just left this class and then maybe I forfeit my dinner. That would be a bad evening. All right, very sensible. Excellent, good. Okay, so now let me take us back to where we were. So, 1 second, we'll go back to this. Okay, so now when we now talk about data generation, so I'll be switching between different slides. So because I want to drive home some points very quickly. So for every single organization that you see, mention the organization: Google, Facebook, the Incubator Orb. Mention the organization in the world. They run on two systems. There are two systems that every single organization run on. The very first system is what is called operational systems. I'm starting to give us some things. Bolanle, you want to work at Microsoft. Aregbe, are you at Deloitte? So every single organization run on two systems. One of it is operational systems. Okay? And operational systems, they are the systems that organizations use to execute business processes. Organizations use operational systems to execute business processes. What does this mean? Any single process that you have within the organization that you are using a system to run, that system becomes an operational system. Let me break it down for you. If anyone has an idea, you've probably been into a bank before or you work in a bank. When you go into a bank, you want to make a deposit. So you go to the cashier and then the cashier asks you for your slip, which you have completed. So you get it, the person gets the slip and then they type in your account number, the amount you want to post to that account, all of those details on the slip. When that happens, they are actually putting that information into a system. There is an application they are entering that detail into, and the application is that which they are using to execute that particular business process. What is the business process in this instance? The business process is the deposit of what was the English? Maybe posting a deposit. Maybe that is the business process. Okay. Look at another organization, for example. You want to have a meeting. You work virtually, you work remotely. You want to have a meeting. People will say that you should share a Teams link or share a Zoom link or share a Google Meet link or whatever link, or share a YouTube link, whatever link you're sharing. Cash deposit. Thank you, Peter. So whatever link you're sharing that is linked to a particular system, that system becomes an operational system because you're using that to execute a business process, and the business process you're using to execute in this instance is you are having a meeting that is related to your business. So whatever system that you have within your organization, your Zoom, your Teams, your Outlook, your whatever you have within the business that you're using, your one page CRM, your Dynamics ERP, whatever system you have within the organization that you are using to run your day-to-day activities within your business, your Slack, thank you for that. That becomes an operational system. We will understand how things link to one another Excellent. Thank you for that, Folashade. I know you wanted to type Zoho, but autocorrect changed it to Zobo for you because you take a lot of Zobo, which is quite good. I know some people advocate that we should be taking Zobo. So the other kind of system is the analytic system. Analytic systems are the systems that you use to evaluate business processes. You use analytic systems to evaluate business processes. What does that mean? Whenever you work with operational systems, okay, your operational systems would have, no, you don't have to apologize for Lashade, you can take whatever. So, what your operational systems would generate some data. Think about it this way, David. QuickBooks, excellent. Think about it this way. When you attend, you are on a live call now on YouTube. YouTube has data about this call. YouTube has data about everybody that's joined the call, the number of people that joined the call momentarily at intervals. YouTube has the data of the charts. Every single thing that we have typed on the chart is saved with YouTube. So if you have saved at some point that you take Zobo, you may be tracked by it somehow. I'm just joking. But you need to know that this system, we are on YouTube Live. We have data of YouTube of every single thing that we're doing on this call saved on that. And that is why it is an operational system. So it gathers the data for us. So the data that it gathers for us will now be analyzed by the analytics systems. I don't know if that is making sense to anybody. So operational systems, your Microsoft Excel. No, don't let me use Microsoft Excel. Your Sage, your QuickBooks, your Dynamics ERP, your Nav, your what other systems do people use? Your one page CRM. Those ones are operational systems. They are the ones that will generate the data for you. So, for example, one page CRM, that is where you are putting your customers' details, your customers' data. That is what you're putting in there. So, you're tracking who is on your pipeline, what is on your pipeline, who is buying what, who has promised what. That is what you have put on your one page CRM. The data is there. For you to now make so much sense of that data, you need an analytics system to manage that. All right. Let's now see some examples. So for operational systems, you have those examples that you have all mentioned. So Zoom is one of the operational systems. Dynamics 365 is an ERP. ERP is Enterprise Resource Planning. Vicky, Enterprise Resource Planning System. That is what ERP is. It's just a system that you can use to manage your business process. Instead of doing things manually, a lot of organizations today, they have developed some custom systems that you can use to manage your business process. For example, if you sell something, they have built a system that immediately you have that conversation, you can log it into that system, and the system will continue to track at every single stage of that business, the conversation, up until when it converts. So that is what ERP. What they mean, what they have. Okay, so you have Oracle, you have SAP. These are some systems that you can buy. You can also build your own. Maybe you have a software developer, you can describe the kind of process that you have within your business, and they can go on to now build a custom system for you that would be built from scratch, sort of. So we also have, of course, like I mentioned, custom built systems. Those are the ones that are built by software developers. So when the systems, these operational systems, when they gather, they generate the data for you, then we will now use your analytic systems like Power BI to now analyze that particular data. Or you use some other systems. So you, aside from Power BI, you have Tableau, you have Google Data Studio, you have Looker, you have Click View, you have Quick Click. You have a lot of them in the market today, but I'm a Power BI person. I'm not sorry to say I'm a Power BI person, and maybe I would advocate that everybody becomes a Power BI person. Okay, and then your Excel is there too. So Excel is also used for analytics, but Excel is quite interesting in the sense that some organizations use Excel as an operational system. An operational system in the sense that maybe you are running a small business, and then within your business, whatever is happening in terms of your sales, somebody goes into Excel and they type it in manually. They type it in manually in Excel. Then if you're using Excel to store the data of your business, or you're using Google Sheet to store the data of your business, then your Excel at that point will become the operational system, because that is what you're using to gather or generate your data. After which you now do the analytics with that same Excel. So that is why Excel is a bit more versatile and it's quite interesting to do. Are we getting the slides after the class, sir? I can't promise yet that you will get the slides, but I need you to concentrate in the class. Okay. All right. So let's shoot on. So, like I said, I'll be switching between these two. So now we have discussed data generation. So then the next thing to understand is that, excuse me, I have two slides I'm running actually. So when you have generated your data, when you have generated your data, the very next thing that will be your headache as a business is, how do I store this data? Think about it for the moment. You have an application that you've asked a software developer to build for you. The software developer has built that application for you, and then the person is now asking, excuse me, 1 minute, I need to plug the system. So the person has built the system for you. Then the next thing you need to start thinking about is, how then do you now store the data that the system is generating? How do you store the data that the system is generating? What does that mean? Think about it this way. You are going into, for those of us that we grew up in the ghetto, okay? Up Nepa, thank you, Adiola. For those of us that we grew up in the ghetto, you know that during dry season, you probably will walk miles to go get water. Okay, maybe you live at Ibafu, for example, and you need to go from Ibafu to the Redemption City, always to go get some water. So when you are going to do that, you would not want to always go at every single instance that you need water. So you want to wash now. You want to wash dishes. You go in the morning to go fetch a bucket of water, and then you use that. And you wait until you exhaust that before you now go to fetch another. You don't want to do that. So what you typically will do is that you want to store water. So you go in the morning, you schedule, you're going in the morning. Once you get you go fetch like maybe 10 bowls or 10 buckets, and then you store it somewhere. So it's the same thing. Your systems that you use in the organization would typically generate data every single instance that you use that system. Then your headache as a business is now, how do I store this data? When you now think about how to store the data, there are two ways to store the data. It's either you are storing the data on premise, or you're storing the data on the cloud. Ogundele, you should not be seeing yourself here if you're in digital marketing. It's either you're storing your data on premises, or you're storing the data in the cloud. What does it mean to store the data on premises? What it means is that you are storing the data in a way that your data is living within the four walls of your organization. Your data is not going out of your organization. If you've been in the IT world when it initially started, or you've probably heard about people talking about servers. So you've heard about servers, somebody tells you that, oh, our server crashed in the company, our server did this. So servers are what people use within the organization to store data on premises. And what it means is that they would have physical storage devices similar to the RAM of your system, maybe bigger than that. They have that in a number of them, and there will be a system that is connected to them wherein the data is physically written into. The disadvantage of storing your data on premises is that since your data lives within the four walls of your organization, you would not be able to retrieve your data outside of your organization. You cannot be on Mars and you want to pick the data that is sitting in Lagos. It will not happen. So That is what you need to understand about on premises. But the advantage is maybe it is better for security purposes, because since your data is not accessible outside of the organization, if there's a data breach anywhere, somebody says that they have access to your data, you know who to hold, because you know that your data cannot fly out of your organization. The other way of storing your data is storing it in the cloud, which is what we do nowadays. Think about it. The data for your WhatsApp, for example. So when WhatsApp asks you to back up your chats, you connect your WhatsApp to your Google Drive. What you're doing is you are saving your data on the cloud. If WhatsApp gives you an option to save you to back up your data to your file explorer or your memory card, that would be that you're saving your data on premises. Does that make sense to anybody? Do you understand now what it means to save your data on premises and what it means to save your data on the cloud? Root, you don't understand what it means to save your data on premises? What it means is that your data is staying within the organization, saved in storage devices, in different servers within the organization. But when you save your data on the cloud, it means that your data is sitting outside of your organization. For example, your data is sitting in Google Drive, or your data is sitting on a database that is hosted by Microsoft. Okay, maybe on Azure, on AWS, on GCP, that is on the cloud. Advantage of the cloud, as it is with your Google Drive, is that whenever, so long as you have access to internet, you would be able to get um, access to whatever you need access to, so long as your data is on the cloud. All right. So let me take a pause here. The admin prompted me that we need to take attendance, so I will just take a pause. Let me use that to take water too. I take water, and I think you should take water too. If you take Zobo, you take Zobo, whatever you take, so that you can get a bit of refreshment, and then we continue in 5 minutes. Thanks, everybody. Admin, over to you. Please, I think it's a link will pop up on the screen for you to take attendance, and maybe it will be dropped on the chat as well. Make sure you take attendance. Make sure you take attendance. Make sure you take attendance. Collins, you're taking Zobo. Interesting. You should send mine too. All right. Somebody's taking Kunu. Adiola. That's good. Soya milk. Anybody? All right. Okay. So please take your attendance. Maybe you need to fill a form. You'll see that on the screen. Maybe that will be dropped on the chart as well. You need to go on to do that now. All right. I'll mute for now. All right, so we're back, everybody. Are we back with me? Can you hear me? Are we together? Can anybody hear? Someone is still taking your guts. Well, we are back in class already. Okay, okay, we are back. All right, so let's do a quick recap. What are the two systems that organizations run? What are the two systems that any organization would run? What are the systems? What are the systems that organizations run? Anybody wants to respond on the chat quickly? You finished your Zobo and you did not invite me. Good. That's fine. Joshua, thank you. Operational analytics system, analytics system, Grace. Somebody, excuse me, somebody gave it an acronym already. I saw OS and OD or something. That's interesting. I know those of us that were very good with cramming in school. You would decode everything. When one very long definition like this, you give it a code. Okay, operational systems and analytic systems. Excellent. So those are the two systems that every single organization run. And we talked about data storage, so that you might want to store your data on premises or you store your data in the cloud. What does it mean to store your data on premises? What it means is that you're storing your data on systems or servers that are sitting within your organization. While if you're storing your data in the cloud, it means that you are paying a vendor so that they can save your data for you. There are some nitty gritties behind it. Well, let me not bore us with those conversations for now. Okay, so when you now talk about where your data can sit on, so because the concept of data sources, they are actually data storages, all right? But they are data sources for the analytic systems. Remember that you already said that when your operational systems, when they generate data, the data that your operational systems generate would be fed into data storage systems. So they are saved somewhere. You have gone to Moe to go fetch water. When you get home, you have one big black bowl at home that you'll be saving or storing the water into. Is the same. So your operational system is generating the data. You are now putting it somewhere for storage, which will now serve as the source via which or from which your analytic systems will pick from. Let me take that again. Yes, Drum. Thank you for that, Adewumi and Victor. So you have, think about the bucket that you are using to go fetch water as your operational system. That is what you are using to execute your business process. So you use that bucket to go fetch the water. You bring the bucket with the water and then you empty the content into a drum. Okay, a black drum at home. So that black drum, your bucket that you use to go fetch the water, that is the operational system. That is what you have used to execute a process. What is the process in this instance? The process is you going to fetch water. When you fetched your water, you now empty it into a drum. That drum is now your data storage. That is where you are storing the data. But that drum, because you are emptying a content into it, that is why it's a storage. It is still the same storage that will now become the source for your analytic systems. So your analytic systems, when you are ready to analyze the data that has been stored, they will refer back to that data storage, which will now become a data source for the analytic systems. Does this make sense to anybody, or I need to go over it again? Adelaku, you are not back in class. Does this make sense? So when we say storage, essentially storage for data that is coming into it, source for data that is going out of it. So let me take that again. Somebody does not understand. This is the last time. So if you're not focusing, Maybe on the sides, you're on the side, you are taking your shawarma. That's why you're missing my explanation. So you need to focus. So what I'm saying is that when your operational systems generate data, you want to store it somewhere. Think about it the way I've just explained it. So you go to fetch water with a bucket. When you fetch water with a bucket, the bucket is the operational system because it is that you have used to execute the process of fetching water. So when you fetch that water, you get home, you empty it into the drum. So that drum is now the storage for water. So you go again another round, you bring in water, you empty it. You go another round, you bring in water, you empty it into that same drum. So the drum keeps collecting your water. Okay. So at that point that you are emptying what you are fetching into the drum, your drum is the data storage. That's a storage device. But as soon as you now want to analyze the water, you want to use the water that is in that drum, maybe for cooking, or you want to use it for washing your dishes, or you want to wash clothes, you come back to that particular drum. At that point, your drum becomes a data source because the water that you're going to use for your washing, for your bathing, for whatever you want to do is now coming from what source? That same drum. So the drum, in some instance, can serve two purposes. Can be the same storage that your operational systems will empty their content into, and at the same time will be the source from which your analytic systems will pick things from. Does this make sense now to everybody? It makes sense that EJ Maje Kudumi, please make it note that I beg. Yeah, okay, it's clear to everybody. Excellent. So now these are the different data sources that we might have. So your data might be coming from maybe SQL, maybe Spark, maybe MySQL, maybe Acumatica, maybe Excel, like we explained, and a number of all of the sources. What is important in your data analysis journey? You just need to identify where the data is coming from, where the data is being stored. How do you now connect your analytic systems to that data storage? That's how you need to fathom out. It's pretty simple, straightforward, but there are a lot of in betweens that you need to understand. So let's go. All right. When you generate your data, the data that you are generating can come in different structures. The data that you are generating can come in different structures. Wisdom, obrigado. What does that mean? Are you speaking our language or another language? Your data can come in different structures. Think about it this way. When you go to when you go to um, maybe in school, if you went to a good school, okay, a school that they upload your result, not a school that they will ask you to go to a particular wall that your result has been pasted and people will start fainting. You went to a good school that your result will be uploaded on your portal and you'll be the one to go and download your result. When you go to download your results, for some people, you may have options as to what file type you want to download. Maybe you want to download your result in PDF, or maybe you want to download your result in PNG as an image, or maybe some other file types might be there. Adeola, your school. I don't mention any school. So maybe the options of file types might be there. The same way you go to some websites, you want to export something from the website. Bank statement. Thank you for that, Uche. You want to export, you see rich people. So you want to export from a particular website, and then you have option of whether you want to export it as an Excel file, a CSV file, or a PNG, a PDF. Those are different structures. But when we talk about data, what are the kinds of structures your data can come with? It is very, 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 very important that you understand this, because the format that your data comes out with, or the structure that your data comes out with, will tie into what you might need to do before you can analyze that data. If you are getting data from Twitter, for example, The format that data from Twitter will come with might not be a format that that is analysis ready. You might have to do some massaging. You might, excuse me, you might have to do some cleansing. You need to do some restructuring before the data can actually be analyzed. So we need to understand the structure of data. So when we talk about the structure, there are three different structures. I want to lie, you're proud of your school. I'm proud of mine too. There are three different structures that your data can come with. Number one, your data can be structured 100%. What does it mean for your data to be structured? It means your data can fit into a table. A table. So maybe if you've ever done anything in Excel before, if you've ever done anything in with any database before, don't worry if you've never, you'll still understand this. But what you see on my screen is what is called a structured data that has a well-defined heading, and then you have data sitting under those heading, data that tie to those headings. Okay, that is what structured data means. And the structured data is a data that you can grab and you tell your manager that, hey, give me 10 minutes, 20 minutes, the analysis will be ready. You can only do this with structured data. Never do it with something that is not structured. Otherwise, you'll be in for it. You won't go home. So, structured data, you have well-defined headings. You have your data sitting in rows and columns. You can fit into what is called a table. Then it is the data that is said to be structured, and it's data that is good, that is ready for analysis. Grace, you are starting to mention schools. Okay. Second type of structure is semi-structured. Semi-structured in the sense that it is not fully structured. It tries to resemble having the properties of structured data, but it doesn't have that fully. So it has some messiness in it. It has some dirtiness in it. No, you don't have to apologize, okay? I was just joking. So semi-structured, it has some dirtiness, it has some messiness, and you need to do some cleansing to get it into a format that is structured before you can analyze it. So that is just the difference. So semi-structured, you can analyze it directly. You need to do some, we call it transformation. That is the technical term. You do some transformation on the data set because it's semi-structured before you can also make it structured. An example of file types. So when you download some file types, you should naturally know that this is a semi-structured data. Anytime you download anything that is JSON, JSON, JSON. Thank you, Winifred. Anytime you download anything that is in JSON format or XML format, or sometimes CSV format, it is semi-structured. So you need to do some transformation to get it to now be structured for it to now work with it. Okay? Just be keeping this information with you. You don't necessarily need to know 100% what all of this means, but just be following my story. We'll get to the destination together. And lastly, we have unstructured data. These ones are not structured at all. They don't, no structure, no edge, no tail, nothing. An example would be your media files. So your images, your audio files, your video files, those are completely unstructured. And that's why when you look at people that work with data from social media, for example, you're picking data from Twitter, there are a lot of unstructured data in there because you're downloading different DPs, that's display pictures, you're downloading different images that were uploaded within tweets. There are lots that you'll be downloading alongside your data. So you need to clean the data properly. You need to make the data clean before you can now analyze it. So 3 kinds of structure that your data can assume. Your data is either structured, your data is semi-structured, or your data is unstructured. All right. So Hold on, let me look at something. I'm trying to just understand to see what is. Okay, let's go to this. You saw ETL earlier. I deliberately omitted it. I don't want to talk about it. We'll talk about it later. We have talked about data generation. You have generated your data now. And while you're generating your data, you know that your data is coming in different formats or different structures. Whether the data you're generating is structured, the data you're generating is semi-structured, or your data you're generating is unstructured. And once your data is generated, you know how you're going to store your data, whether you want to store it on premise or you want to store it on the cloud, before you now connect your analytics system to it for analysis. Okay, so when we talk about data analysis itself, data analysis is a process. It is not a one-off thing. So when people tell you that I want to analyze data, never think that what they are just doing is to tell the data that get analyzed and then the data gets analyzed. No, it doesn't happen that way. So there are a lot of things that happen behind the scenes. So behind that beautiful dashboard that you see, behind that fancy reports that you see that you love the color combination, you love all of those things. What you see, there are some mechanic work that has happened behind it that you did not see. There are a lot of things. Sorry, I said mechanic work. I'm also a mechanic. I did mechanical engineering. So we shouldn't feel offended if you have mechanical engineers here. So there are some dirty things that analysts would naturally do behind the scenes before you see what you eventually would see out there. Let's go into it. This is what the life cycle is about or is like. Remember that we already set this. Before you are going to analyze any data, the data must be available. Joshua, good. When it moves, you must have the data. If the data does not exist, you cannot perform any analysis. If your data exists and your data is stored and you can access the data, because there are two things. The data can be in existence and it's not accessible. So you need to get that right. When we say that the data exists, so in the context of an organization, the data might be available for a particular analysis, but because you are an intern, you cannot access the data. You do not have the privilege to access the data. So what we are saying is the data exists, the data has been gathered, the data has been stored, it exists. At the same time, you can access it by whatever privilege you have within that organization. When you have that, the very first thing that you can do or you should do in the data analysis lifecycle is to do what is called ingestion. What am I saying? Cibex, what's that? Ingestion. You need to ingest the data. What does it mean to ingest the data? Remember that everything we want to talk about now for data analysis lifecycle, Raji, not injection, ingestion, or is it as this? So what we are talking about now deals with your analytic systems. Everything we've spoken about before now, we are all with the operational systems, which is your operational systems in the sense of the data gathering, generation, and then storage. Now we are talking about analytic systems. So you now want to connect your analytic system, which is an example is Excel, an example is Power BI, an example is Tableau. You want to connect that to the data that you already have. So the first thing is to now ingest that data into your analytic tool. You need to suck it in. By way of sucking it in, you need to connect your analytics system to that storage so that your analytics system can see the data that you want to use and the analytics system understands that this data exists. That is what ingestion is about. When you ingest your data, we have said it before that your data might be coming with some messiness. You went to buy akara and they added what Yorubas call oma akara. They added it to it. All of those grains, okay? You know, when they fry akara, you have the ball, then you now have the akara particles. All of the babies, grandchildren of akara, you have them with it. So you may not want that because you're from Lekki, you understand? For those of us that we came from a part of the world, we normally would want to, what's it called? We like your makara, we like those grandchildren. In fact, there are times that we go buy those grandchildren deliberately. We tell them we don't want the balls, we want those grandchildren because they are sweet with bread. You know, when you buy very fresh bread and then, you know, so let me not go too much into those details. So, but it's just like that. So you have the balls, and then you're feeling that all of those grandchildren, they are not what you need. So you need to now transform what you got by way of taking out all of the extras that you do not need. You don't like all of those extras. So that is what transformation means. A lot of the times in real world scenario, your data will not be 100% structured. Okay, it might have the structure that you need, but there might be some things that come with the data that you don't need for that specific analysis. So those cleaning and cleansing are the things that would happen in the transformation phase. Okay, that is what will happen in the transformation phase. So the first thing you're doing is you are ingesting your data. After you ingest your data, Jamila, I won't answer your question. So after you ingest your data, then the next thing is to now transform it in case there are messiness within the data. Dorcas, I choose not to answer your question. Okay? Then, once you have transformed your data, the next thing you naturally want to do is what is called modeling. Maybe you've heard people talking about modeling, data models, all of those buzzwords. What does modeling mean in literal terms? Modeling simply implies that we want to run an analysis about sales, for example. We have a table in our storage, and whenever I say storage, what I mean is database, okay? That is where your data is sitting on. Don't worry, when you get to your SQL class, you're going to have a lot of databases. You hear more of that. So you want to perform an analysis on sales. You want to know how much you're selling, what is contributing to a lot of your sales scribe. No, I'm not from Mushi, unfortunately. I've not even been to Mushin before. I don't know Mushin, but I know maybe it's around Bushodi, thereabout, but I've never been to Mushin before. So it's just a coincidence. So that's why I said there is Mushin location and there is Mushin who is a person, okay? And who is from Nigeria. So when you want to do perform analysis of sales, you probably would need a table that stores your transactions, every single transactions that you've performed around your business. Thank you so much, Odusoji. I'll do that now. So you probably need to have a table that holds transactions about your business. That's number one. Alongside that, there might be another table. I'm taking this slowly because I want you all to understand this. There might be another table that holds details of your customers. So you have a table that holds details of your transactions. You have another table that holds details of your customers. Somebody might be asking, why do we have different tables? Don't worry, you understand that when you get to your SQL class and Power BI. But that is how it happens in a business world. So you have different tables relating to different things within the business. So when you now have to analyze or to perform analysis or to create reports, that would need you to build that report of two or more tables. You need to do what is called data modeling. And data modeling essentially, so data modeling is a vast field on its own. And depending on your persona within the data ecosystem, you might be defining modeling differently. So if you are a data engineer, what data modeling would mean to you is not what it means to a data analyst. But I'm restricting to this to data analysis now. So whatever definition I give to you now is how a data analyst would define data modeling. Don't go and say it in the data engineering class that this is what data modeling means. You might be flogged somehow. Okay, just joking. So, but what I'm saying is that depending on where you sit within the data ecosystem, you might be seeing modeling from different point of views. So as a data analyst, what modeling means to you is that you need to perform analysis from two or more data sets or two or more tables. You need to find a way to make these tables talk to themselves. That's what data modeling means essentially. So table A must be related to table B. Table B must be related to table C, for example, so that when you are performing your analysis, you can do cross-table analysis. You can perform an analysis on multiple tables. That is the technical thing behind data modeling. Should I take this again or it's clear? Should I take this again? It's clear to everybody? Okay, Samson, listen to this. Nisi, power pivots, you're on track. Eniola, listen to this. Okpayemi, okay, I'll do that. Florence, okay. What I'm saying is this. Data modeling is a way of making separate tables, standalone tables, to see themselves as one. Let's take this for instance. We have Funke and we have Adetunji. Funke and Adetunji, they are naturally cousins, but they didn't know themselves. So the first day they are meeting, Funke's dad starts to introduce Funke to Ade Tomiwa. For example, to say that Ade Tomiwa is your cousin, is the daughter of so so so. So by that, initially when Funke and Ade Tomiwa saw themselves as in the sitting room, they were looking at themselves as strangers. But immediately that introduction was done, they embraced themselves and they saw themselves as sisters. So it's the same thing with data modeling. Two tables or more tables are coming from the database. They see themselves to be strangers. They don't know themselves. They don't even a table does not even know that the other one exists. But now we want to connect them together so that they know one knows that the other one exists to make our life easy during our analysis. Does this make sense? Are we good now? Ogbonaya, I love that. Thank you for that. Adeola, where did you go to like this? Good to go. Excellent. So that is modeling. So when you are done modeling your data, the very next thing you want to do is now to start visualizing the data. And what does visualizing mean? Visualizing just imply that the data you have, you are bringing it to life graphically. You are now plotting your charts, your graphs on your data so that people can now see things more visually. Because all this with you, nobody in the business wants to see your raw data. However fine you have formatted it, nobody wants to see that. Ogidan, nobody wants to see that. What everybody is particular about is what is happening within this data set, and a way to bring that to life is by way of visualizing the data set. All right, so that is visualization. When you're done visualizing, because visualization would naturally not answer all your business questions, there will be some questions that mere using tables and charts and graphs would not solve them, would not give answers to them. You now need to do some further analysis. Maybe there's a calculation you need to do before you get to that result, or maybe there is a formula that you need to apply somewhere before you get to that result. That is what you now do in your analysis. Because let me tell you at this point, you don't need. So one thing that they use to scare people away from data analysis is they tell you that you need a background in statistics. They tell you that you need a background in mathematics. I, for a person, I do not have a background in statistics. I do not have a background in mathematics. I don't know if TD has a background in mathematics. Maybe Femi has a background in mathematics, but I know a lot of data professionals today who did not have any background in mathematics or statistics. But what is important is that there are some things that we call basic statistics that you need to understand. But those things, you are going to get them in the class. So not to worry at all. All of those mathematics that they have been using to scare you away from data analysis. Data analysis is not that much of mathematics. It's more of logic. It's more of understanding the business. It's more of now putting together logic, business understanding, your experience in that space to now talk about the data that you see. That's all. So you're welcome wherever, from whatever field that you're coming from. Maybe you're coming from medicine, you're coming from law, or maybe you're coming from chemistry, you're coming from whatever you've studied in school. It doesn't really matter. So, but whatever it is that you need for this course, you'll get it. So why did I mention this? Is because when you get to the analysis phase, there are some calculations that you'll be doing. There are some computations that you'll be doing. So those computation might just seem like you are doing a 2 plus 2, like Emmanuel just said. So, and then, but then you will not be saying it's equal to 22. Otherwise, the HR will call you the next day. I might give you one letter that I won't want to call the name. So you may need to just have an understanding of how whatever calculation works within that business and try to implement that in your own scenario. And when you're done with your analysis, typically you are going to now give your findings to people. Essentially, in the sense that you never analyze the data for yourself. You are analyzing this data for people to use them. You're analyzing the data for stakeholders in the business to make use of your findings so they can make decisions of your own analysis. Somebody did cosmetology, Bidemi, course, and you are a male, Bidemi. How did you get that course? You wanted to do law, right? So you now need to present your data, your findings. So in the bid to present your findings, you might actually be submitting a physical report for people to go through. That's you putting together all of your findings and then passing that on to them so that they can go through it, or they're asking you to do a live presentation. In either ways, what is important is that when you're done with your analysis, you might work in an organization where after your analysis, you'll be called upon. Somebody did study makeup artist. Okay, yes, you're telling me what cosmetology is. Okay, good. So you might be called upon to now come and do a presentation. All right. So this is the data analysis lifecycle. And for most data analysis projects, you'll follow through all of this. Depending on the kind of data that you're working with, you might not be doing data modeling all the time, but in a typical business scenario, you'll be doing data modeling. Most times, 100% you always be ingesting your data. There will be some transformation that you do. There will be some data modeling. You'll definitely be visualizing your data. There may be a few computations that you will do along the line. And also, you might be doing some presentation. And you might be fortunate to work with organizations where you just have to send your report across. Nobody's asking you to come and do a live presentation. Let's do a recap. What did we start with? We started talking about the systems that organizations run. What are they again? What are the systems that organizations typically run? Can SQL be used for visualization? SQL is not supposed to be used for visualization. Let me put it that way. So SQL is not supposed to be used for visualization, but what SQL is about, you'll learn it in the next phase. Okay, operational systems and analytic systems. Thank you so much for that. So we have operational systems and analytic systems. Can somebody give example of operational systems? Examples of operational systems? Examples of operational systems. Zoom, thank you, Victoria. ERP, thank you, Winner. Thank you, Lua Tobiloba. Ajay Oluwa, thank you, Zoom. Good. QuickBook, excellent. SAP, Idioma, good. Doris, Excel, yes, Excel can also be an operational system. Yes, like I explained. Zoo, excellent. Oracle, Modupe, thanks a lot for that. Can we give some examples of analytic systems? Examples of analytic systems. Analytic systems, anybody? Power BI, Gloria, Excel, AY, thank you. Taye BI, Ineoluwa, Power BI, Abimbola, Tableau, Semisola, Bespoke. I think you're still responding to the prior question. Idowu Tabulu. Idowu is not Tabulu. Idowu is from my village. Joy, Excel, Steven, Power BI, good, excellent. So those are analytic systems. When you gather your data, you have two options of where to store your data, whether what or what. Can anybody put that on the chart? Where you can store your data. You can either store it dash or dash. My Power BI, thank you, Dan. Yes, you're correct. So you can either do cloud, thank you for Lashade, Esther, premises, not necessarily premises, it's on premises. Thank you, Sophia. It's on premises or on the cloud. And you understand that on premises mean that you're storing the data within the four walls of the organization. A lot of banks do this in Nigeria. And then for some kind of data, and or you're storing the data on the cloud, which makes it accessible. So you're buying storage space from some of the non-vendors, maybe Azure, which is owned by Microsoft, or you're buying from Amazon, AWS, or you're buying from GCP, Google Cloud Partners. All right, so then we spoke about, what else did we talk about? Data structures. What are the structures that your data can assume? Structures that your data can assume. What are the structured? Thank you, Kainde. Odewale, excellent. Structured, semi-structured, and unstructured. Thanks a lot for that. Thank you, Ezekiel. Thank you, Adeola Samuel Wycliffe. Good. So Yombo, thank you. ISS, thank you. Well done, everybody. And then we went on to now talk about the data analysis lifecycle, and we talked about ingestion, transformation, modeling, visualization, analysis, and presentation. The very last thing that we should talk about, so we can round up, is to now talk about why do organizations analyze data? That is a very big question that you should ask yourself. Data analysis comes with a lot of investments. We've talked about the systems that organizations run. So I'm hoping that some of your questions are dropping already. That's why I still want to finish this so that I know that I'm wrapping up my introduction today. So those systems, organizations would have paid for them. They paid for operational systems. They paid for Zoom. They paid for Google Meet. They paid for Teams. They paid for all of the softwares that are built for them. They paid for Power BI. They paid for Excel. All of this are happening based on payment. They have invested a lot in this. Why do you now think that they are making all of this investment? They are doing it for one of three reasons. The very first reason is that every single organization that employ an analyst, such as you that you're on this call, they want you to help them find out from all of their strategies. When they have their retreats, when they have their strategic meetings, they have come up with a lot of ideas. They've implemented these ideas. Which one of all of these ideas is working? Which one of them is working? That is one of the things they want you to help them find out. For example, as a business, you might advise that, okay, we have our competitors already doing this. Maybe you are in the e-commerce business. Our competitors are already doing this. And then we want we want to surpass our competitor in sales, what we can do is to give discount. That is a strategic movement. That is a strategic decision that you've made as a business. You need to now go as an analyst to now say, what is the impact of the discount that we are giving on sales? The discount actually translates to an increase in sales, or we only give discount as a giveaway sort of. So by way of analyzing, you understand if the strategy around discount is working, or if the strategy around discount is not working, which is the converse, or is there a particular product that is not performing well based on your analysis that we should focus on. Maybe we need to now re-strategize around how we are marketing the product, or how we are selling the product, or in what format are we selling the product. These are the three things that every single business wants you to help them do. So whenever you see reports out there, you see people building reports, or as we go on in this class, you start building your own report, have this at the back of your mind so you don't forget it. Remember that your focus is not to have beautiful reports or beautiful dashboards. Your report must help the business do this. Otherwise, there's no reason why they should be paying you 1,000 naira per month. There's no reason why. So the reason why you're employed as an analyst is to help them identify what is working within the business, what is not working within the business, and what we should focus on. All right. So we have run through the introduction. From the next class, we are going solid. So we'll start our classes on Excel. Come prepared. Make sure that you have Excel installed. If you don't have it installed yet on your laptop, and then we can, yeah, Emmanuel, that's a lot of money, right? So I will start our Excel class from the next class. Is the next class tomorrow or the next? Not sure, but we'll start our Excel class from the next. All right. So, any question for me before we go? Any question? When is the next class? I'm sure the schedule would have been shared with you. Don't let me confuse us. I'm not sure I have all the dates with me, but I know that I have a class next time. Okay. Any question, everybody? So what I typically ask students to do on classes like this is, because one thing that would help you on this journey, that would make you solidify all your learnings, and you are not just sitting on YouTube without learning per se, which will also force you to always go back to all of the learnings, is to document your learnings. So by way of documenting your learnings, what I mean is, a class like this, you summarize your key learning points. So when you summarize your key learning points, you go to a platform like LinkedIn, for example. So you go to a platform like LinkedIn, you put all of your learning points, the ones you've summarized, you make a post about it on LinkedIn. You tag the organization that is behind this program, Digital Skills Africa, the Incubator Hub. You tag them. You can tag your instructor. If you check me out on LinkedIn, just type my name, Musin. You see Musin H. That's me. You see me on LinkedIn. You can tag me, just by way of documenting your learnings. That is pretty much important, because that will do two things for you. Number one is, if you're able to attend a class and you can summarize it in your own words, it's an indication that you understood what was taught. That is number one. Number two is that it starts to give you visibility in this space. This is what you want to learn. How can you install SQL and Power BI? You will wait till the the SQL and Power BI class. That is when that will be installed. For my class, what I need you to do is to go install Excel. So install Microsoft Office if you don't have it on your laptop. I'm not saying on your phone. Before somebody asks me that they are using Apple, where will they download Excel? You cannot download Excel. So it should be on your laptop. Somebody type Motion H, you will not find it. It is Muhsin, Muhsin, and then the surname is H, and that is what you would see on LinkedIn. So let me see if I can put that somewhere here. Maybe you can see that on my screen. This is what the profile is about. So just make a post essentially, and then Tag me. You can tag you should tag the incubator orb as well, about your learnings, and you do this every single class that you have. So when you get to your SQL class, you continue with that. Tag your instructor, um, which should be Femi. Tag your instructor about what you learn in the class. Have a summary. You can have some screenshots if that works for you, so that you keep tab of your learnings there, and at the same time, you also you're building your brand, you're building visibility for yourself. Thank you so much. I'm trying to see if there are questions on the chat. We have some 5 minutes before we call it a wrap. You're unable to fill the attendance form. Maybe you joined lately, but I'll just plead with the admin if they can put that on the screen shortly, so that you can have you probably can also get to see to fill the attendance. My LinkedIn profile, that's what you see on the screen. Just go to LinkedIn and search Musin H. You should find me, possibly, if I'm still visible. What's the meaning of Musin? Okay, it has an Arabic background actually, so it just means someone who does good. Who does good. Only on LinkedIn. Well, I'm mostly on LinkedIn. I'm active on LinkedIn. I use Twitter once in a while, but I think LinkedIn is good for this kind of thing professionally. I think so. In the modeling cycle, are you saying there needs to be? I skipped that. Let me go to that question. In the modeling cycle, are you saying, oh, what's going on? What's going on? They don't want me to answer this question. Are you saying there needs to be? This question keep jumping up. There needs to. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I tried to pick it. Can you just repeat? Okay, there needs to be introduction. Hey, God. Introduction of another table. I think that's what you're saying, to make them related. No, so you understand that concept properly when you get to SQL. The way data is gathered naturally, most tables would have ways to relate them to one another. The way, so that is a structure that most databases will be built on. So what you need to just identify essentially is, I have a table A. Is there a table B that is related to table A for me to be able to answer all of these business questions? That is what concerns you as an analyst. But leave that conversation of how to identify ways to relate tables to one another. Keep it with you till you get to your SQL class. How can I activate my MS Office? Unfortunately, I won't be able to answer that. Uh, I could not complete last assignment. Please, what happens? I don't know what will happen, but you can wait to see. How are data actually generated from the operational system, says Zoom? Yes, for Zoom, for example, depending on how much you're paying Zoom, you might be able to connect to Zoom to get your data, or you have to download your data. So when we say you're downloading your data from Zoom, you may actually be downloading a meeting chart, you might be downloading meeting attendance, you might be downloading meeting summaries. There are a lot of things that happen in the meeting that you might be able to do. Even in the video, the meeting video itself, you can download the transcription. So those are data that you can get from Zoom, for example. Um, okay, how do you ensure data quality and accuracy? It's part of the things that you need to check when you are doing your data transformation, to be sure that your data is clean. And then when you are now analyzing, you need to ensure that your data is accurate. So there are ways to validate that, but hopefully we get to that. I've been prompted that I will need to draw the curtain here. So thanks a lot, everybody, for attending today's class. Thank you so much. This is a journey that's begun today. We are going for the next 8 weeks. We'll be on this for different learning stages. Please brace up. This will be an interesting journey for you, I promise, by God's grace. Ensure that you attend all classes. Ensure you do all of your assignments. Ensure that you follow through with all of the advices that you will be getting from the class, and you'll be glad that you did. I mentioned 8 weeks for classes, not necessarily for the entire program. Thank you, and we'll catch you again.
I am a software engineer at one of the leading tech firms in Europe, but my journey started right here in Ogun State, Nigeria. As a teenager, I always wanted to be a medical doctor, but I found joy in coding during a 7-day digital bootcamp in 2016. Today, I work as a software engineer at one of the world's leading blockchain startups, and I've also worked with other engineering teams across 3 continents. My name is Shadrach. I earn well and thrive in a career that I love.
It's safe to say I learned a skill and became a global talent. You can too.